I don't want you to think I have a heavy bias towards lawyers, but can I call on Helen Kelly, who is the first woman president of the CTU. She is a lawyer, and I have seen her use the Public Law Toolbox. There was the Official Information Act request about the Hobbit legislation and the policy leading up to that, the Ombudsman complaint, the papers have finally come out. There is the citizens-initiated referenda that has been started on the mixed ownership model, so legislation. So Helen, come and tell us how it's done, a union perspective of dealing with government. Thank you.
Well, kia ora koutou, and I don't think it's fair that I have to follow John Allen. And Mai, if you can get through this program on time and keep all of the speakers you've got on this list to their program, then you'll deserve a medal. So I guess I just wanted to bring a perspective from a trade union perspective about working with government, and it's my view that the New Zealand form of government, based on the Westminster system with a touch of American culture added into it, makes workers and citizens much more dependent on government in this country than in many other countries, with different forms of government and with different cultures. And you'll know many other countries include workers in the context of business development. I think in New Zealand, business facing means just that, very, very narrow group of views and opinions, business in its narrowest terms, and I think we lose opportunities for that. And I think with due respect to the last two speakers, they actually focused on that to me. When they were talking about business, they were talking about business leaders. In New Zealand, there's virtually no mechanism for determining wages outside of legislation. For example, there's only 9% of the private sector collective bargaining of any note in the private sector. There's no industry responsive standards for setting terms. There's a very high threshold to enterprise bargain even, and there's little support when companies embark on deunionisation strategies, as we're seeing currently with the tallies dispute. There are over 300,000 workers paid on or near the minimum wage, and that's an example of how reliant workers are on government for terms and conditions. There's virtually no social partnership model, something we tried to develop in the last government, but which in my view now, having that experience, is not possible with the current government model or the current cultural dominant theory in this country. There's a lack of government interest and many cultural barriers to social partnership. We don't trust each other. There's very little cooperation between employer organisations, common focus on what New Zealand business should look like, and the common business organisations, in my view, are very dominated by the US concept of what a business is and the role of workers. There's no settled agreement on what is a fair industrial relations system and the role of collective bargaining in New Zealand. So every time a government changes, there's as much of a contest about what that industrial relations system will be as anything else. And so the result is for working people that everything comes back to government: the minimum code, whether they're safe and healthy at work, unemployment, whether there's opportunities to work, the welfare policy, workplace training, whether there's opportunities for training, development at every level. Policy, law and funding and implementation is very, very reliant on government, and it's quite unique. When you travel, you realise how unique that is. There's virtually no interactions between union and business organisations, between workers and business on the future of business. All interactions with us are with the government, with business are with the government, with NGOs are with the government, total reliance on it. All failures go to the government. Any lack of training opportunities, any skill shortages, high unemployment, workplace accidents, low wages, all go back questioning the government. And we get to the point where there's a tragedy of the commons in respect of this, that any business that wants to seek a different approach or step out of the model as quickly realises that they'll become uncompetitive in that model. So our experience is that whatever idea is put up by either side, and I use the word side deliberately because the political context creates sides, are seen as a trick, as part of a competition, and there's very low trust models, and that moves right back into the public sector. Every proposal was considered on the basis of what side it has been put up from, and there's very little trust taken and very little opportunity in that model. And health and safety is a classic example of this. The current model of health and safety is built on this dream that will have workplace reps in every workplace, that will have codes and standards, and that will have inspectors, and that employers will take all practicable steps in their workplace to keep workers safe. The reality is many employers don't know what all practical steps would be in their workplace to keep them safe. They don't consider themselves employers, they consider themselves plumbers or builders or electricians who employ people. The reality is that there won't be workplace reps in every workplace because there's only 9% of the private sector unionised. The reality is we will never have enough workplace health and safety inspectors to carry out the enforcement model. So we have a European model with US implementation, and we have 5 times the rate of workplace death as the UK. So our experience is that there's a contradiction between the narrative of keeping government out of business and making government easier for business to deal with when everything is so reliant on government. All progress, all regulation, all opportunity has come right back down to the people that work in this building because there are no other institutions or mechanisms for those conversations to take place. So ironically, we'd like to see less government, less opportunity to work with government, and more opportunity for the parties to step up themselves and take responsibility for the things they know about, care about and benefit from. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. It's great to have that different perspective, and yes, your phone did ring.